I'd like to convene the committee of the whole here for our meeting. So would the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Olson, Commissioner Musich, Commissioner Menz.
Here.
Commissioner Elper.
Present.
Commissioner Bene.
Present.
Vice President Crudup. President Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And then, if you will, move the minutes from May 10th. Appreciate it.
So moved. Go ahead. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. So I would like to adjourn for us to go into closed session recess? What word?
Almost. A motion for closed session.
A motion for closed session, please.
Second.
So moved.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will go into closed session now.
Really good on our last night of this.
I'd like to reopen the closed session. Then I will take a motion to, well, no, we'll just adjourn.
I would move to reopen the meeting.
Thank you.
Seconded.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and so now I will adjourn the closed session, and I will open then the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board here on July 5th. And will the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer. Here. Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Menz.
Present.
Commissioner Alper.
Present.
Commissioner Bene.
Here.
Vice President Crudup. President Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I will mention that Vice President Crudup will not be able to be with us tonight. And also, we will ask now for an approval of the agenda, of which we will be bringing forward, if it passes in committee, Resolution 2023-121 from Administration and Finance. Anyway, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. On to the approval of the minutes from June 21st, 2023, and March 15th of 2023. May I have a motion to move those?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Action carries. Okay, on to reports of officers. Superintendent Bangor, please.
All right. Thank you, President Ford and Commissioners. Second here. All right, I think I'm on. It's great to see everybody. We'll start off with the strategic direction A, which is act boldly for our climate future, and give a little bit of background on this one. So I'm going to talk today about the blue-green algae bloom monitoring and assessment program. So the Park Board initiated a algotoxin testing program at all NPRB beaches in 2022. If you want to look for the information, it's available on our public website at Lake Water Quality Map. This program was created in response to an increase in our blue-green algae blooms in Minneapolis lakes to protect the health of our beach users. We do visual inspections for the presence of blue-green algae, and also completed at all beaches on a weekly basis. So we monitor these on a weekly basis. The Park Board has also been working with a consulting firm to identify the most cost-effective and efficient strategies to change lake conditions so harmful algae blooms do not form. And if you see the picture there, it's kind of distressing, but it started early this year. So we are monitoring it, and we will obviously keep you informed and the public informed of our lakes. In our strategic direction B, cultivate each community's place and honor cultural traditions in Minneapolis parks. I'd like to highlight the Juneteenth event. Our Juneteenth event was hosted at Bethune Park on Saturday, June 17th. It was a partnership between the Park Board and the Juneteenth Community Board. The event featured a full stage lineup with Jamisha Bennett, Jamela Pettiford, OBI or OB Original, I think it's OBI Original, the BDOT Croc, Brooklyn Park Lions Drum Corps, Nick Church, DJ Dime, Jackson Hurst, Genteltha Ray, and MC Maya Marcel. There were over 50 community vendors, including 5 food trucks, and a historical reenactment tent. The Park Board's pop-up park added to the fun near the playground, and there was a station for kite building and decorating at the event. The event drew several sponsors, including Alaris, Bremer Bank, City of Minneapolis, IBEW Local 292, AFSCME 5, and the NAACP Minneapolis were all present, and we thank them for being there. It was really great to see them. We're also happy to continue our partnership with the Phyllis Wheatley Community Center and also POCUM, which is acronym POCUM, as well. So it was a great event. Very proud of the events that we put on every year at Bethune, and it was great to see our community out there and all our partners. So thank you to everyone on that. Our strategic direction C, implement quality youth and intergenerational programs. And what we want to highlight here is our youth tree climbing program. Forestry staff conducted a tree climbing workshop at Whittier International Elementary School. And we are providing this experience. We feel by providing this experience instills self-confidence in students as they accomplish the formidable task of safety climbing a tree. It also exposes them to important work that is needed to care for our city trees. So we start young with our kids, and we give them really the love of our trees and the work that goes into preserve and to take care of them. So this is a wonderful event with Whittier Elementary, Whittier International Elementary. And by the pictures, you can see they had a great time and tested out their levels of fear. But they had a great time. Strategic Direction D, care for our park assets to meet evolving needs and practices. So we're going to talk about the master plan implementation update. So the Minneapolis park system is almost entirely planned now, but plans sitting on shelves don't do the community any good. Through creative project implementation and consistent tracking, we're advancing the promises made to community during the years of park planning. In the strategic planning department, 6 plan champions are tasked with advancing park plans in a variety of ways. The plan champions work with community members on special projects. They are help planning project manage during design, construction, and also community engagement. And they work years to advance our most complicated projects to set the table for implementation. The plan champions are engaging with staff across the organization to guide other work in the context of park plans. By leveraging the expertise of Operations Services area managers, Recreation Center staff, and youth crew leaders, among others, we can work together through our normal day-to-day tasks to accelerate the community's vision for parks. This is how we de-silo the park board. Madeline Hudek of the Data Insights team has created a park plan tracker that we use to ensure we are making good progress. We track by park, by asset type, and by the most likely means of implementation. Adopted park board or MPRB park plans have 2,630 total implementable policy items within them. 367 of these are complete. That's 14% currently. Some older parks plans are further along than some of the newer ones. So I'll give an example. For instance, the Minnehaha Creek Plan, one of our most recent, is just 6% complete, while the Minnehaha Regional Park Plan from 1992 is 70% complete. Nokomis Hiawatha, at 32% complete, sits right in the middle. So right now, there are 312 implementation items active across 58 different park locations. So this is very exciting. And again, I can't thank planning and everybody, the work they do to really put this out for you as commissioners and the public to really track this and be able to kind of get access to the questions you might have around park plans. So wonderful, wonderful work that we're doing within staff. The last strategic direction, E, steward our natural resources. So prescribed goat browsing for invasive species control at Theodore Wirth Park. I was getting a kick out of this. MPRB, the Park Board's environmental management, continues contracted work with Diversity Landworks for the control of invasive buckthorn through prescribed goat browsing. Work continues in the 2 sections of South Theodore Wirth Park, comprising of a total of approximately 6 acres over the span of approximately 4 weeks. Goat browsing is being utilized to diversify our management toolbox for the control of buckthorn and other woody invasives. So with that, we'll end on the goat buckthorn and to say thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, myself and staff are available. So thank you.
Any questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Benney?
Just a quick question, President Forney. Thank you, Superintendent, for that presentation. On the data insight slide about the master plans, is that on that Power BI tool? That one?
Yep. President Forney, Commissioner Bennett, yes.
Okay. Has it been on there for a little while in this form? I go on there periodically, but I hadn't seen this, but I might not click that far through it. I know there are 5 pages or something like that.
I will defer to Director Arvidsson just to give a specific timeline so I don't say it wrong.
Thank you.
Director Arvidsson?
President Forney, Commissioner Benny, just a quick clarification, Commissioner Benny. When you talk about the tool that you have visited, are you talking about the True CIP tool?
Yes.
So the master plan tracker is a different tool that is not yet public facing. It does have linkages to individual staff work. So we're trying to be a little careful about how we roll that out publicly. So this data is not currently a part of the CIP, the True CIP dashboard, but it's something that we're working on the reporting around.
Okay, that's super helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And President Forney, would it be acceptable at this time? Chief Ohado was going to have a really brief report on the weekend and the events of July, during the July 4th. Would that be okay?
It would.
If-
I just want to make one more comment, and that was that, do we have the ability to remove the word master? I'm sorry. I should have when you were here, Adam.
Yeah.
President Forney, we do. For example, before you tonight, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board plan for Cedar Lake and Lake of the Isles is the first example that does not officially have that word in it. We're in the midst of transitioning some of our other tracking and then figuring out what to do with some of the older planning. Interesting to note, the Met Council is actually also changing its requirements to try to remove the word master from the planning document nomenclature. And instead, we'll just probably be calling them regional park or regional trail plans. It's a little simpler at any rate. So I would consider us to be in transition on that topic.
Wonderful. Thank you. Baby steps. Yes, Chief Ohado?
Chief Ohado.
Please.
President Forney, Commissioners, thanks for the opportunity. I just briefly want to provide an overview of the 4th of July weekend, at least from a safety and security perspective. Obviously, we had the Stone Arch Bridge closure from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. That began on Friday, June 30th, and it ended last night. Overall, that was a really effective tool in helping us manage our asset. I know that it was met with a little bit of public criticism, but from an operations perspective, I thought that was extremely effective. We heard a lot of positive feedback from our public safety partners and from residents along the riverfront. The Stone Arch Bridge, as of today, is resuming its normal operations. The gate is being removed. There will still be Jersey barriers on the Stone Arch Bridge to prevent motor vehicle traffic from crossing it, but it will go back to its hours prior to June 30th. With regards to the rest of the weekend, we had a really peaceful, good weekend up until last night at about 11:30 p.m. Friday through last night at 11:30 p.m., we only had one reported crime of violence. It was a robbery at Elliott Park. It was a relatively normal occurrence for us to deal with in the course of a summer weekend. And overall, violent crime across the park system was almost non-existent. It was minimal. Our officers supported the laser light show that took place on July 3rd. There was initially a very big crowd that came out to see that show. I estimated it at about 5,000 people. We had no security issues with that activity, that venue at all. It went really well. The only thing that I think we would look at in the future is probably a more robust traffic plan. Traffic did get backed up a little bit on the Plymouth Avenue Bridge. Lastly, yesterday, 4th of July, so I was here most of the evening last night, and it was pretty unremarkable until my phone started ringing at about 1 a.m. Beginning last night at about 11:30 p.m., we had several incidents that started occurring all at the same time across the park system, mostly in our regional park system. So we had a large gathering on the east side of Bedeh-McCoska that resulted in fireworks being launched at both people and police officers. We had an incident at Boom Island, 2 incidents at Boom Island, again, where we had really large groups of young adults and teenagers show up, weaponizing these fireworks and aiming them at our staff. If you haven't seen the Twitter feed on Minnesota crime, I urge you to watch that. Those are our officers who are being targeted. And this is not a benign firecracker. These are commercial-grade fireworks that are being targeted at people and could cause serious injury or death. Our officers have shown remarkable restraint in the way that they've handled these situations, and I couldn't be more proud of their work. And hopefully you are too. We had 2 shootings yesterday, late in the park system. There was one at Columbia near the picnic area. There was one person who was injured as a result of gunshot wounds. That person is still hospitalized. And then we had another shooting at Harrison Park. That person has been released from the hospital. Those are both active investigations. We also saw large crowds at Minnehaha Falls and Lake Nokomis. The Minneapolis Police Department and the Minnesota State Patrol assisted us in these responses. I know that there were 4 people arrested at the falls for firing fireworks out of a vehicle. That vehicle also had a gun in it. And the Lake Nokomis incident was a group of about 100 cars at the main parking lot. We continue to struggle as an agency with operating and responding within the regional park system to these really late night gatherings that are taking place, essentially when our staff is going off duty. Our officers typically go off duty at 1 a.m. They were still working up until 7:30 this morning. So I think things to consider in the future is how do we create infrastructure within the park system to close or limit access in the overnight hours? How do we staff or support activity in the overnight hours? And how do we prevent these really large groups of teenagers and young adults from gathering to engage in violence in our parks late at night? So with that, I'll happy to stand for any questions if you have them.
Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Menz.
Thank you, President Forney. What are the ordinances that we have in the books, not the park board, but other entities around fireworks in the city? I know that other cities don't have fireworks available. I mean, what is our, I guess, way to enforce? Is there?
President Forney and Commissioner Menz, almost all of these fireworks that are fired through the air are illegal in the state of Minnesota. But people can go to South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, and Wisconsin and buy these things. I think what we're seeing is basically a black market trade where people are going to these other states, they're buying huge quantities, and then they're selling them to these kids at a markup over the course of the summer. Possession of these fireworks is a misdemeanor crime. When you fire a mortar at somebody's head, that's deadly force, that's a felony. That's assault in the first or second degree. And so the challenge for our officers become, we're outnumbered 100 to 1 when we're responding to these calls.
Thank you. And thank to all the officers. I mean, it's a really big challenge. I was at Boom Island Park for the laser light show, and it was a very calm and peaceful event. I have had many conversations with constituents across the city, and I'm not sure whether or not our actions to not have fireworks was positive or negative. I don't know if it even had an impact on what would have happened. But I do think that our organization's goal of limiting or saying that this is not something that we shouldn't use gunfire or weapons, even in a recreational way, does have an impact over time, and maybe so. But what the organization went through last night and what your department went through last night is something that not only do we have to rectify with that, but the entire city has to figure out what we're going to do around this time period to keep as many people safe as possible, especially the people who are trying to maintain the peace. But thank you.
Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Forney. Chief Otto, so today I read in the paper that we're having problems with young people from outside the city coming here to wreak havoc. Of the arrests that were made last night, were we seeing a similar trend of people that are coming from outside the city and using us as their deadly playground, or is that not really what we were seeing, and it was more Minneapolis residents that were engaging in these behaviors?
President Forney and Commissioner Musich, I don't have a comprehensive answer for you. I know that the 2 gunshot victims both had addresses outside of the city at Brooklyn Center nearby. And I don't know the addresses of some of the other folks who we've identified as a result of last night's activities. I just know that those 2 victims reside outside the city.
Okay, so just putting forward a guess. Sorry, I'm a little tired. The mortar fire kept me up really late last night also. Understanding that this could be a regional issue that is just rearing its ugly head in Minneapolis right now because we are struggling to have enough staff to respond to what's occurring. Are you in conversations with the police chief, Minneapolis police chief, and surrounding police chiefs around what a comprehensive regional approach to this problem might be? Because I do expect we will see this again next year based on how few people are going to be seeing repercussions from the way they behaved.
President Forney and Commissioner Musich, because of a deficit of police resources that has only gotten worse over the last several years, we are collaborating with our public safety partners all the time. Last night, like I mentioned, the Minnesota State Patrol sent a huge contingent of troopers to the Columbia shooting to assist us. That is greatly appreciated. The 4th of July is a challenge for every police department in the metro. And I can't see a scenario where one of the nearby suburban agencies are going to loan officers to support activities in Minneapolis right now because their hands are full. We have seen these gatherings of young adults and teenagers show up in regional parks, not only in Minneapolis. We're seeing it in Robbinsdale, in Golden Valley, in Brooklyn Park, in Brooklyn Center, in Fridley, and all of these agencies are struggling in how to deal with this. These are gatherings that are pulled together with short notice on social media. They're not applying for permits for picnic shelters. This is not something that's predictable. And it's occurring late at night. And again, for us, we don't staff a 3rd shift. Our officers are supposed to go home at 1 a.m.
Okay, I guess I'll have to noodle on additional things that we could be doing to support all of you in trying to keep everyone who is going to the park to be in the park for park reasons rather than firing mortars at each other. Because it is not something that I love reading about in the newspaper. I doubt any of my colleagues up here wanted to see that happening. We certainly don't want our staff working such really long hours under extreme amounts of stress trying to stop people from hurting each other on a day that's supposed to be a day of celebration. So yeah, I'm going to need to think about that some more, and I know you'll be happy to take my call when I have an idea that probably you've already thought about and won't work. But thank you again for your time and that report. We appreciate it.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you so much, President Forney and Chief Ohado. I honestly, like after Commissioner Mew said she asked all my questions, I would just like to echo what she said and thank you and thank our staff and thank everyone. I was just on a personal note, I was like, oh, it seems calmer this year. And then I wake up this morning to, of course, all this information. And my only question, I guess, left, but I believe Commissioner Musich covered it, is there any sort of entity that already exists or you might find helpful of these different agencies coming together? I know we all sit on different, sometimes outside boards and all that kind of, is there anything that exists in a collaborative public safety nature within all these jurisdictions, or is it just kind of a person-by-person phone call type of situation?
President Forney, Commissioner Thompson, no, they're professional organizations. There's the Hennepin Chiefs Association, the Minnesota Chiefs Association. We've got a group within the metro here between the Minneapolis Police Department, the Park Police, the Transit, and the Sheriff's Office that meet and work through these issues. What this board really needs to understand is the deficit of officers across the state of Minnesota. There are supposed to be somewhere between 10,000 and 11,000 licensed peace officers, and we're well over a 10% deficit across the state and much higher than that in the metro. We don't have enough people pursuing this career to hit even our budgeted staffing levels right now. And that's true with the park police, it's true with the city police, and we can't even consider adding, let's say, a third shift to the park police until we get to full strength where we're at for 2 shifts.
Well, I will just add in what some of my colleagues have already said. I am happy to help in whatever way I can, and your expertise supersedes mine, so I will listen. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I had a question. Have you experienced anything of this magnitude in your career here at the Park Board on July 4th?
President Forney and Commissioner Schaefer, it's really hard to compare this year to year. I will say that up until last night at 11:30, this was a really quiet Independence Day weekend. This was largely a huge success across the park system until 11:30 last night to about 4 o'clock this morning. So that means that most of the people who came to visit our parks during normal times had a great experience. And we're happy for that. We're proud of that. It's just these challenging moments in the middle of the night that are really hard for us to get our arms around. I started working here in 1995. That was the Minneapolis year. And we had different issues around 4th of July that often involved gang violence. We used to do fireworks at Powderhorn Park, and sometimes after the fireworks were displayed, we were taking shelter behind squad cars because gunshots were hitting the trees nearby. So I would say 4th of July throughout my career has been very challenging. This trend of aiming mortars at police officers and squad cars is new within the last 2 years.
Thank you. I just would like us, as we think about next year, I personally would really like to start strategizing about this. I mean, obviously your staff is going to do that, but as commissioners, I would like to hear, whether it's publicly or not, where are we headed in this? So that we can feel like we're not just reacting every 4th of July, but that we're possibly even trying new strategies. We tried one this year, and we can evaluate, was it effective, was it not effective? What's going to be our strategy now for this kind of game plan that we experienced last night? And I'm excited about that, about really planning ahead and giving input as needed and able to in that process. And then secondly, how can we as commissioners encourage your staff in a practical way in a time like this?
President Forney, Commissioner Schaefer, to your first question or point, these late night gatherings at regional parks are magnified on the 4th of July, but they are occurring all summer long, and it's not just a 4th of July problem. So we need to figure out a way to have effective eyes and ears on the regional parks that can intervene with teens and young adults in a safe but effective way that is in addition to or beyond police. As far as supporting the officers, I think your public words of encouragement mean a lot, but I think when you have opportunities to see officers, ask them how they feel. Let them tell their story. I think that's very powerful, and I think it's important for you to hear that as well. Our officers accept ride-alongs. If commissioners would like to see some of this stuff up close, I can certainly arrange that. I know that many of you did that last year when you were new to the board, when you were new to this term. They appreciate that. They want their work understood.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank your colleagues.
Sorry.
Also going on to, I'm sorry, Commissioner Olson. Well, I apologize, I thought we were ending. We do need to go to open time, but a couple more questions when we return. Sorry about that. Okay, so I am going to have open time now, and I'm going to read our open time rules for those of you long list here, but anyway, thanks to all of you who want to share your thoughts and ideas with us during open time. Before we start, I want to provide an abbreviated version of the open time board rules. All individuals wishing to speak may call in before noon the day of the meeting to be placed on the agenda, or can sign up at the board meeting prior to the start of open time. I will be calling on people on the sign-up list only. Open time for public input shall not exceed a total of 15 minutes, with a time limit to be allocated by me, the president. Please watch the timer up here to be considerate of others here, please, to speak, and stay within your allotted time. During open time, public testimony will be given without debate, and only clarifying questions from the board will be allowed. Two types of items are not appropriate for open time in order to protect the privacy of all individuals. Those are pending litigation and personnel issues, so please refrain from commencing on specific personnel issues. We will not tolerate discriminatory or harassing words directed at anyone, so please ensure that all comments you make tonight comply with this policy. This board made the decision many years ago to operate under Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the ceding of time to another person is not allowed, so only those signed up to speak may only speak for their own allotted amount of time. We also request that each speaker provide his or her name and address. And we have 6 speakers, so I am going to be very, very lenient and provide 3 minutes each. So first we have James Kirkham, and then after that is Mike Tate. James, please join us.
Thank you. Thank you, President Forney and Commissioners, for all of your work. 2,647 items that are being worked on. That's amazing. And then listening to what you're dealing with security issues. I live at 22 Park Lane in Minneapolis, Minnesota, along that strip of southeast shore of Cedar Lake that's got some attention. And one of the amendments pertains to building a path along there. In 1936, our house was built. Before it was built, the people along the shoreline ceded to the park board a thin strip. It's 7 feet at my location, and we've spent, in return for the encroachment, we were asked to maintain, and we've spent $30,000 on the wall, and our neighbors have spent like amount along there. It's very short, so it's a quick drop to the lake. It's about 4 feet down. And as well as maintaining the 100-year-old tree and bringing cranes in and not asking the park board. It's very difficult to access that, much less security. But if you entertain the amendment to build the path along the southeast shore, remember that you only have 7 feet. There's a big drop. The Canadian Embassy was sold to someone, the Canadian Consulate, and that's the only area that the park board's been involved in stabilizing the shoreline. They put riprap, which isn't very natural. It's huge stones. We have a vertical wall, much like at Bede-Makaska, and trying to absorb the cost of that in an attempt to take a 7-foot strip to push a path through there, or filling in the lake. And I think the boardwalk's gone by the wayside, but I really want you to consider there's a reason since 1936. This has come up 3 times in separate planning commissions to try to build that path. And I'm sure it came up before 1991 when I was there, and it just hasn't been practical, and I don't think it will be practical. And I want you to consider the cost and the fact that you have this limited space and you have 2,647 agenda items. I don't think you need another one. So when you consider this amendment, I would hope you would reject it and take the park plan as submitted. It took years to put it together, and lots of people put a lot of effort into it, and there's a reason why your staff recommended against putting that pathway in there. They looked very carefully, and the cost and the limitations, I think they made the right recommendation. So thank you so much again for all you give to the city of Minneapolis and our park system.
Thank you. And Mike, I apologize, but Soren, somehow I missed your name. No, please, if you would come forward. He was the first one on the list, and I failed to acknowledge you.
That's okay. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Soren Jensen. I'm the Executive Director of the Midtown Greenway Coalition. We're the organization that had the idea for the Midtown Greenway, and we worked to get it built. We're proud that it's recognized as the best urban bike trail in the nation. At a previous meeting, Park Board Commissioners expressed great interest in finding out exactly what Hennepin County and the City of Minneapolis would contribute to the Midtown Greenway if the Park Board joins on as a co-manager. Well, I have good news for you. If you vote yes today on the resolution from Commissioner Alper, you'll be able to find out exactly what each agency will contribute and how much it will cost. Allowing staff to complete the Midtown Greenway Master Plan will allow you to review the actual proposed joint powers agreement. At this point in the process, there's no need for speculation and worry about being on the hook for something you don't want to pay for. Everything will be in the joint powers agreement, which you can review prior to voting on it. If you don't like it, then don't vote to support it. But if you vote no today, you'll never know what was going to be in the Midtown Greenway Master Plan and the joint draft powers agreement. The only way to make an informed decision is to allow the master planning process to continue. Concern has also been expressed about funding for other regional trails. However, allowing the Midtown Greenway to become a regional trail has no financial impact on the other regional trails in your portfolio. All it does is give you an estimated $70,000 a year, or whatever that amount may be, from the Met Council to be used for the Midtown Greenway. Maybe we could finally get a wayfinding kiosk or a picnic table. And by the way, today we got our first water fountain ever. It's actually on Park Board land at CPRO, so that's the first water fountain that's ever been in the Greenway. It's very exciting. The Greenway Master Plan would probably be the least expensive master plan you've ever done. The Greenway is already completed, and there are many plans and studies that have already been done, many with assistance from Park Board staff. Master planning does not lock the Park Board into any new commitments to maintain or improve the Greenway. As you know, the Greenway travels through some of the most racially diverse and economically underserved neighborhoods in Minneapolis. The Park Board co-manages regional trails in wealthier neighborhoods, such as the Kenilworth Trail. It can't be the case that you're only willing to co-manage trails in those neighborhoods, but not trails that travel through lower income and more racially diverse neighborhoods. It should be very easy to do the right and equitable thing here. Choose the capital-only option, which gives you the funds from the Met Council to invest in the Greenway. Maybe we could get a picnic bench once a year. That would be terrific. I urge commissioners to support the resolution from Commissioner Alper. Direct staff to finish the Midtown Greenway Master Plan and the draft Joint Powers Agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, and then after that is Melancon, I think is.
Hello, my friends. I'm here again to our dear children. I'm back speaking about the inequities that are going on with my taxpayer dollars. Our taxpayer dollars, are not being distributed right. You can never change a problem around equity, inclusion, diversity, until you change the culture. I've been on teams that do this work. You got to change the culture first before you can get to those other three things. And especially with our children. I hear Ohio talking about he doesn't have enough police officers. Well, how many park police have my kids seen to build a relationship to become a police officer? And I know he's a busy man, but somebody's got to plant that seed before I can see myself be it, right? And we're talking about people of color who cause them problems, right or wrong. Let's don't hide it. We already know it. Because we're not building that youthful, strong relationship with those young people. We don't want to change the culture. We're in a new world since George Floyd was murdered, y'all. These are kids that are fighting back. They were locked in houses for 3 years. Nobody cared. Nobody programmed them. We know we sat in parking lots and we didn't do nothing. Coach is out there, but that ain't my job. I'm a taxpayer. I do it because I love my community. What I want to see is hopefully there's some structure that changes in this building for our children. It starts here. It don't start at 15. I start recommending parents do fundamentals at 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in our parks. Not only in the Southwest Park, because I know they're doing it. I want the challenging areas. Let's commit staff, whether they're here, some $2 million going into staff to do what? I hope it's going to go towards programming these youth that need us more than anything. The only way you can change is in a developmental role, y'all. You can't grab the kid at 10. He's already in the stolen car. She is. Some of the quickest stolen cars were stolen by 12-year-old girls. So please, change some of the culture, and you'll change youth lives in the city of Minneapolis, and I guarantee it. Thank you very much.
Benjamin, and then after that is Janelle Anderson.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Melanson. I am a resident of Minneapolis, 17th Avenue North. On Friday the 23rd in Bryn Mawr Park, a Parks employee told an unhoused person who was not on Parks land, this was just outside of the park, that this Parks employee is on a city committee, that he would be back on Monday with a representative from the railroad, and that he would ensure that this unhoused person would be forced to move. The Parks employee did not show up on Monday or Tuesday, but he did show up on Wednesday with the team, and I happened to be there and asked him to acknowledge my request that he not remove any person living outside without a place for that person to go, and especially to not harass and threaten people who are not even on Parks land. He refused to acknowledge my request, asked to leave, said he'd call the police. I repeated my request. He said people were working there and he would call the Parks police on me. And then some of the people he was working with came up around me and he said, "I cannot deal with you today. There are too many witnesses," which is a very well done threat, but I don't appreciate the intent or the larger policy behind it, which has been the Parks Department putting on blinkers, pretending that the rest of the world is not its problem, and throwing unhoused people on the parks, out of parks. I just want to say every single public agency with anything has its commitment to the whole community, and I think that prioritizing youth makes the most sense, but that unhoused people are being chased off of every single piece of public land, state, city. It's like there's tons of unused land in the city. The Parks Board at least has to take a stand against other city agencies displacing the problem back near parks. This unhoused person is not in any way an interference with the park, no, not visible, nothing. It was, I feel the Parks employee was very out of line. I do have private communications with the Parks Board with the person's name, but I have not received really any follow-up. And again, I contacted on starting Friday and again, Wednesday last month. But yeah, I mean, want eyes and ears in the parks, like give an unhoused person a live-in job, one person per park, keep an eye on things, like there's a lot of creative solutions that would help a lot. Thank you.
Benjamin, if you wish to, our recreation superintendent is in the back, Mimi, and if you had any further question of our rec staff, you can consult with her. Janelle, and then after that is Catherine Gunsberry.
Yes, my name is Janelle Freeman Anderson, and I am the director of Freedom from the Streets, and I am a nonprofit. My thing is that about 2020, I was outside with the other people running the camp and doing things at the camp, and now I'm checking on the camps or checking up on people outside, and I see these police officers keep messing with people, especially on Elliott Park. Because when I came up there, I seen them. I was like, oh my God, these police is riding up on it. What the heck going on? I had to get out of my car to look at them. They're like, okay, what's going on? Why y'all messing with these people? These people are homeless. They don't have a place to go. Why y'all keep messing with them? Y'all keep pushing them, pushing them, pushing them, pushing them. It's wrong that y'all pushing them because they don't have anywhere to go. The shelters are nasty and filthy. The places that they have where their daytime is nasty and filthy. Everywhere they got them going is nasty and filthy, and they don't really care for them. I just want to say that it is wrong what these police officers are doing. And we're going to spend tax dollars to get more police officers to harass more homeless people. We got a problem on Lake Street that's got drugs our area over there. Ain't nobody doing nothing over there, but they in the parks messing with regular people. I had a thing going on this week where people and the police ride up on me. I'm like, what do you want? And they was like, well, we want to know what's going on. I told them, I said, I am a nonprofit. I'm reaching out to my people outside. Can y'all please just back it up? Because their thing is that they don't just come at you nicely. They come at you harshly. And you're talking about kids doing stuff to police officers? Well, police officers need to take time out with those kids and do something instead of trying to throw them in there. And most of the people are my color, black. I don't want to see a lot of my black people in jail over some stupid stuff that could be solved. We got a system here. Our system needs to work for us, for all. What does it got on there? Protect and serve. Who are you serving? Who are you protecting? You're not protecting us. You're not protecting the homeless. You ain't protecting the black people. You are protecting yourself. That's how I feel each and every day going outside, seeing them ride up. I'm talking to somebody, they ride up on you. They walk with a nasty word. Ooh.
Thank you. Catherine Gunsbury.
Hi, President Forney and commissioners. Thank you for your commitment to our parks and to delivering a Cedar Lake of the Isles plan that serves nature and future generations. My name is Catherine Gunsbury, and I live on Park Lane. This park is near and dear to my heart. Like so many of us, I know you care about water quality and long-term ecosystem health. I encourage you to keep this top of mind as you vote this evening. I encourage you not to vote in support of additional built structures and spaces, such as bike paths in the northeast corner of Cedar Lake Park, a permanent bathroom on the north side of Lake of the Isles, and a path along the southeast shore of Cedar. Each in their own way threaten restoration and stabilization of woods, shoreline, and habitat. For example, as Jim talked about earlier, to establish the southeast Cedar shoreline fence cow path, existing trees will perish, while soil erosion from any pathway will contribute to long-term water quality degradation. Not only will these proposals replace nature, but they will require maintenance and create long-term financial commitments. The proposed amendments are inconsistent with the stated master plan goals and strategy. I ask the Park Board to step back and calculate the true long-term cost of adding these features. That true cost will be shouldered by the very nature we seek to preserve and by future generations who will inherit a maintenance albatross even heavier than the one they stand to inherit today. Please prioritize nature for citizens, for children, and for all those who will follow us in the future. Thank you again for your commitment to our city, our parks, nature, and future generations.
Thank you. That is our last speaker, and so I will return then to the questions, which I believe it was Commissioner Olson who I cut off, and I didn't mean to, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'll try to be quick. So you said at Nokomis, was it 100 people overall or 100 cars there?
100 cars.
Okay. Just to kind of emphasize with folks, or just to, so we had a good conversation about the Stone Arch Bridge closing. I had some disagreements about whatever. I'm going to get into it, but we did kind of mention, or I did bring up, you know, the kind of hydraulic bollards, and you know they are pricey, but I think you know with the upcoming budget increase, local government aid, things of that nature. I don't see really in the future, even though we have more funding, kind of the deficit in staff being subsided anytime soon. And so I would really think like things that increase our efficiency, like those bollards that we can just maybe press a button, put up when it's closed, and you know, maybe people will still drive around it or whatever. But just encourage efficiency, I think, because we're going to have to work with this shortage, I think, for a while, unless Minnesota starts getting a huge population increase. So just want to bring that up. If, you know, folks, you know, should look into them. A lot of other cities do them. They're pretty effective, and you know, we don't have to lug around gates or anything like that. So just wanted to bring that up.
President Forney and Commissioner Olson, creating infrastructure within the park system that helps us control and operate access appropriately will be a vital step forward. I've had conversations with Superintendent Bangora and Assistant Superintendent Schroeder and Assistant Superintendent Barrick around these things. We did implement a gate at Boom Island after last year. That implementation has been hugely successful in managing that park space. I mean, these are capital investments that our regional park system needs in order to catch up to where we need to be as one of the premier urban park systems in the country.
Any other questions? I too would like to express my appreciation, not only for you, but for all of your officers, community connections, and also the great collaboration that we have with all the other agencies. I think that's one thing that I just find so impressive. You know, we were in, I think, almost all of the, what should we say, press and everything. We were the first ones that were acknowledged, okay? And I'm so grateful for your service. And I do think that, you know, the thoughts have been brought up that, yes, these are the types of things we need to be considering as we go into our budget setting. And I look forward to that discussion and how we can address these issues that are not going to go away, as we say. So thank you. On then to anything more from reports of officers? That was it? Okay. Then we will move. Any questions of the superintendent regarding his report? Okay. Then we'll move on to reports of appointees to outside boards, commissions, or committees. Yes, Commissioner Benney.
Thank you, President Forney. There was an audit committee meeting on June 27th. At that meeting, we received and filed the Phase 1 report on last February's Expo. And the findings so far, which are just the first phase, point to process and training issues inside of the city of Minneapolis. And so the next phase will assess if there are systemic issues that need to be addressed in terms of, you know, training and process, or if this was isolated to this one event. I think that's going to be very clarifying. But, you know, and this is not to malign anybody that works at the city, but I believe the MPRB, we do use the city's procurement process. So it's important for us that this is looked at anyway, because that's where I think some of the kind of not in the right order of operations things occurred. So that's it.
Thank you. Any other reports? I will report in that we did meet with the mayor last week and his staff. I do believe that it was the most staff that I have seen from the mayor's office that entered the room. So they were there. They were present, okay? Once again, our finance director, Wiseman, did a wonderful job in teeing up, you know, what our requests that we'll be talking about tonight. But I also want to acknowledge that Commissioner Benney showed her professionalism, or her professional background very well in talking about the initiatives, the supplemental budget that we are moving forward with parkways and with stormwater. He indicated he's got some real heavy lifts. I think most people are aware about the consent decree that needs to be dealt with financially. So it's not going to be an easy decision, but he indicated that he heard us. I did remind him that what brought him here, and that was the Twin Cities Marathon, so therefore our parkways, and showed some nice pictures of him plunging into Damacoska. So just a subtle reminder that, these things are key, and this is what we fundamentally work on, and we are, that's what we're about. So I thought it was a good meeting. What also was very exciting is to see that staff are going to continue this conversation. So we also, though, as commissioners, need to be doing our efforts. So on to that, we will go to the consent agenda, and all in favor, we will move the consent agenda. Any questions on that?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? That action carries. Okay, on then to the Planning Committee. Who is taking over today? Okay, Commissioner Bennett.
On behalf of the Planning Committee, I'd like to move Resolution 2023-123, a resolution adopting the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board plan for Cedar Lake and Lake of the Isles, a portion of the Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park with Modern Impact Amendment S, Commissioner Schaefer Amendment Number 1, and Commissioner Schaefer Amendment Number 2, as approved during the June 21 Planning Committee.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Schaefer.
I'll just have some comments if there's no further dialogue with the board. But I want to say that I am thrilled to be here at this point in time. The final vote of the Cedar Isles Master Plan. This has been an area of our system that hasn't had a formal plan since the 1960s. And I want to recognize once more the huge amount of effort that this has taken on the part of staff, the CAC, the community, and all who participated in this process from around the region and the state. This is a great plan. It prioritizes water quality and natural resources and also highlights some key circulation changes around two-way bike traffic around Lake of the Isles and a northern bike ped path on the north part of the channel. Are we going to please everyone that we did everything right? I think other commissioners who have worked through regional plan processes know the answer to that, no. Could we have gone further or deeper in some of the aspects of this plan? Yes. But this is still a great plan. And I am proud to cast my vote on this plan that represents the hard work, engagement, and compromise of all those who participated. And I hope that my colleagues will join me in supporting this plan.
Any other comments? Any other comments? Oh. Okay, well, I will make a few comments. First of all, yes, it's been a heavy lift. I reminded some people that when I first ran for public office, I ran on that we had not had a comprehensive plan done since the 60s. So I am just so proud of the fact that over the past couple of decades, what we have accomplished in this organization as far as comprehensive plan, regional plans, service area plans, it's just been amazing. And as Director Arvidsson shared, 2,900 and some policy decisions on just our regional. It's been a huge lift, and I'm very, very proud. We only have one more to do, and that's the North Mississippi, which I'm not sure when we will be queuing that up. But yeah, it's been huge. I want to thank my appointee, who is Linda Mack, and acknowledge that I think I have had the honor of appointing half a dozen appointees to these plans. That is where we, as commissioners, that's where our role is in one way that we have our role. And I'm very proud of all those people that have served and grateful. Commissioner Musich and I guess, are the only ones up here who've had that opportunity to appoint somebody. But because we have had this long experience of not only serving and watching these plans, I do feel that there were some deficits here. And overall, though, it is phenomenal. It really is. I've worked on this area for probably close to 3 decades. And so bringing that experience, bringing my hands-on as a commissioner, I was going to bring forward an amendment, but I have chosen not to. In the plan, it does indicate what I was trying to get to, and that's since there are many unknowns related to visitor projections at this location, MPRB should assess whether the proposed circulation improvements adequately address impacts to parkland once the Southwest Light Rail line is up and running. It's kind of wishy-washy in there, and I feel as if I really, really hope that everybody will start to plan for what will the 21st Street Station, how will it impact this huge, huge vision that you all have. And was my concern and what I mentioned at the last meeting, and I still have a concern there. I was very active in the Midtown Greenway. I was on the original board, as I indicated, but trying to get the developer who at that point, well, now it's Whole Foods, excuse me, is it okay if I finish, people? Anyway, to really not turn their rear end, to that station. They did not at all. So there is not a welcoming spot there, and so that is why it concerns me even more, that what the nature of the 21st station may deliver. So I please, everybody, continue to keep your eyes and ears open on this. Who knows when the heck Southwest LRT is ever going to be completed, but at that point in time, I hope we're not put into a reactive position, but that we can start thinking in a proactive way of how we can protect the values that you put forward in this plan. So on that, yes, I would like to also say I will be voting in favor of this plan. Any other comments people have to make? I don't see anything. Okay, so on that, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? That action carries. Congratulations, everybody. So on to our next, which is, excuse me, another planning. So Commissioner Abene.
Thank you. On behalf of the Planning Committee, I'd like to move Resolution 2023-127, resolution directing staff to continue work to prepare a regional trail plan and a capital-only joint powers agreement for the Midtown Greenway that is aligned with the submitted community engagement plan and that can be considered for approval by MPRB and the Metropolitan Council, and to expand research on operations, management, costs, and ownership of the Midtown Greenway to include other regional trails under the jurisdiction of, but not owned by, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board as decision-making guidance for the Midtown Greenway and other jurisdictional regional trails.
Second. Thank you. Discussion. Anybody have it? Commissioner Schaefer.
I would like to make a motion to move an amendment when there is no more other discussion around the original resolution.
Doing it after, okay, so Commissioner Menz.
Thank you, President Forney. So I almost made an amendment to this, but I talked with staff a lot about this because I'm worried about staff resources and dedication and time, and that the Midtown Greenway has taken up a lot of the space in the room. And we have a regional trail that we have been allocated $5.5 million for, and I'm concerned that master planning for the Midtown Greenway may infringe on that planning process, or getting those funds out the door for the missing link of the Grand Rounds. However, I have complete confidence that the planning staff that have been working on this and can do multiple things at once. But I would like to request a study item come to the board around the current planning process around the grand rounds and what the plan might be for the allocation of the 5.5 million and dedicating that to the northern section of the missing links is what I like to call them at this point. And I'm hoping that planning staff would be able to sort of refocus our efforts on that regional trail that we currently operate, so that we're just making sure that we're taking care of the resources that we currently have that are currently under our purview, and that we're ensuring that that money that has been allocated by the state, that we're aware of what's happening. So I'm wondering if planning staff is able to, or if we can get that as a study item on the July 19th agenda, maybe?
President Forney, Commissioner Menz, yes, we can.
All right.
Thank you.
I think we have some marching orders there. Thank you. Hopefully that's a realistic timetable. Okay. We are having a technical difficulty up here.
I ran out of battery, sorry.
Huh?
I ran out of battery, but I'm good now. Good. Everything's fine.
Oh, okay.
I just needed my computer plugged in.
Okay. Okay. So did you want to?
Yes,
I don't
I
see
would
the
like,
other light,
I would
so.
like to move amendment for discussion, co-authored by Commissioner Abene and myself, that actually dovetails with Commissioner Alper's language and has been reviewed by staff. I'm going to highlight the pieces of this amendment that are most crucial. You have it in your packet with the highlighted in red and the stricken items, if you would like all the detail, but for the public, I'm going to just highlight the main points. And it starts by actually changing the resolution language for 127. The resolution is directing staff to provide commissioners with an overview of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's responsibilities as it is related to the October 2000 Bikeways Project final report on or before August 3rd, 2023, and continue to work to prepare a regional trail plan and a capital-only joint power agreement for the Midtown Greenway that is aligned with the submitted community engagement plan and that can be considered for approval by MPRB and the Metropolitan Council. The main change, I think, is clear in that one, the report. Then I will jump down to whereas clause. I'm going to read the different ones. I'm not going to highlight which one it is. Whereas the report was a collaboration, this is referring to the October 2000 report, between the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board and the city, and part of a joint service redesign project that considered the role and responsibility of both agencies for several types of public infrastructure within the city. The report established a joint planning process for new trails, and also roles and responsibilities for the development, operations, maintenance of on-street and off-street trails and bikeways in the city of Minneapolis for existing and planned on and off-street trail infrastructure which has not been superseded. Main point, still valid plan. Whereas the report considers all potential scenarios, including the participation of other government partners, especially in cases where neither the city nor MPRB would own the land under the bikeway. Whereas the report documented the responsible parties for all segments of the Midtown Greenway, ranging from segments that were already built to those who were in the planning phase, and MPRB was not identified as a responsible party for any of these segments. Whereas the report identifies the trail owner, jurisdiction, property ownership, and maintenance responsibility, and serves as an overall joint powers agreement for all of the existing under construction and planned trails in 2000. The trail owner has overall responsibility for the trail, including capital improvements, and there is an option to define another party with maintenance responsibility. Whereas for the Midtown Greenway, the city of Minneapolis is identified as the role of trail owner and maintenance responsibility for all segments in the 2000 report. Whereas the city may request assistance from other entities, but ultimately is responsible for the Midtown Greenway and serving the users of the trail. Whereas the Midtown Greenway must have an approved master plan for regional park and trail funding to be allocated to it. Whereas the MPRB is the implementing agency that would produce and seek approval for the regional park and trail master plan within the city. Whereas there are many immediate funding needs within MPRB's regional park and trail system. Whereas MPRB's regional park and trail system is not funded to the levels needed for capital improvements or identified in state statute for maintenance and operation. Whereas in approving regional trail planning for the Greenway, the Board of Commissioners is signaling to the public a desire to expand our regional footprint. Whereas Greenway regional trail planning would be coming from the general budget, which already significantly supports the regional park system. Whereas for MPRB to say it will provide capital funding only is a broad term, inferring provision of all new amenities and infrastructure on the Greenway. Whereas in designating the Greenway as a regional trail, MPRB would receive $70,000 annually for the Met Council for improvements. Whereas there are many current bonding needs within the Minneapolis park system. Then we move to the resolves. Thank you for your patience with those. I will read the new resolves. There are 5. Resolved, MPRB staff shall provide commissioners with an overview of MPRB's responsibility as it relates to the October 2000 Bikeways project final report on or on by August 3rd. Resolved, MPRB staff will amend the September 28th, 2022 Community Engagement Plan, posted in the Petitions and Communications section of our board agenda. Strike, clarify MPRB's role in the ownership and operations of the trail to simply clarify MPRB's role in the trail in the second to last sentence. Resolved. I'll read, there's a partial change in this one. Resolved, the Board of Commissioners directs staff to continue work to prepare a regional trail plan and a capital-only joint powers agreement for the Midtown Greenway that defines how capital funding would be allocated and used to implement capital projects in the event that it is aligned with the MPRB's community engagement policy and that can be considered for approval by MPRB and the Met Council. Last 3. Thank you for hanging with me. Resolved, MPRB capital-only funding for the Greenway will be restricted to lower-cost new amenities like wayfinding, drinking fountains, portable restrooms, picnic tables, community gardens, and similar like items that could be supported by a $70,000 annual budget. MPRB's capital-only funding will exclude high-cost items, including new ramp infrastructure, lighting, permanent restrooms, pavement repaving, trail expansions, and like items. The new capital-only amenities provided by MPRB will be maintained by the city, county, and HICRA as the current and ongoing Greenway operations and maintenance providers. Resolved, the Greenway Regional Trail Planning process will collect public input within the detailed narrow scope of lower cost amenities, wayfinding, additional gardens, picnic tables, and not collect public input around high-cost capital items, which would be supported by city, county, state funding requests, like access ramps, lights, trail expansions, etc. Resolved, funding, implementation, and maintenance of high-cost capital needs on the Greenway, including infrastructure like ramps and lighting, will be provided by the city, county, and HICRA. All state funding requests for the Greenway will be made by the city and county, not MPRB. This will protect MPRB's commitment to our current MPRB state funding requests to finish the grand rounds and other important regional projects. Thank you.
Is there anybody interested in doing a second?
Second.
Okay, now we have discussion. Okay, Commissioner Alper.
Thank you, President Forney. Well, I just wanted to say, first of all, I can tell it took a significant amount of time and energy working on this, so thank you for doing that over the last couple weeks. I had a couple questions and then would like to propose at that point suspending the rules to make a few minor wording changes. But I guess I just wanted to ask, first of all, ask the two of you or ask staff, just if you can confirm that this amendment will meet the conditions of the Met Council for making it eligible for a regional trail. Can you confirm that?
Director Arvidsson to the rescue.
President Forney, Commissioner Alper. Functionally, yes, I believe we have confirmation that a so-called capital-only joint powers agreement would meet requirements to incorporate the trail into the regional park system. I would say that my main concern along that avenue of questioning is again around community engagement. So in the resolved clause that bifurcates community engagement between the low-cost amenities and the high-cost amenities, I do think, as I noted 2 weeks ago, I think that will be challenging for staff. And I also think the prohibition to even collect public input around portions of a plan might create issues with Met Council approval because it won't look like a full engagement process. It's hard to know that right now because it is really on the decision-making authority of the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission and then ultimately the Met Council to determine whether the engagement sort of meets the level that they're willing to go forward. But I will say that particular item is the one around Met Council approval that I feel could put that approval in jeopardy, and also secondarily will probably create some tension between staff and the public when we're out engaging to make that distinction.
Okay, do you feel we could proceed with the amendment and you would be comfortable coming back to us if you learn anything else? If you can confirm that, actually the path we're on won't be eligible, could we pass it tonight is what I'm saying? And could you come back to us with updated information if it's not passable? I mean, if it won't pass muster with the Met Council?
President Forney, Commissioner Alper, we don't typically consult with the Met Council and MPOSC during the execution of a planning effort. So in following our community engagement policy, we try to do as much engagement as is outlined in the plan, in the community engagement plan. Then we follow that, and then we make the case to Met Council that we've done the work that's expected in the 2040 policy plan. I wouldn't have any way of knowing midway through our process whether what we do is going to pass muster or not. So there'd be no way for me to come back to this board to ask for an amendment or clarification at that time until we got all the way even past your potential approval and then to MPOSC. And then that's where they would either accept or reject our work.
Okay. Thank you for your comments on that. I guess I'm pro my fellow commissioners passing it within this kind of narrowed scope of community engagement, and then after the fact, making our case to the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission, because the trail is already built again. So I also wanted to ask, does this amendment prohibit the Midtown Greenway from accessing equity grant money from the Met Council? And it's a competitive grant. I just learned about it today. It comes every 2 years, and I believe it's $2 million. And I would hope the answer is it would still be still have access to these funds. Eligible. Still be eligible.
Hello, President, Commissioners. Thank you. It would still be eligible for the equity grant.
Great. Thank you. Can only implementing agencies access Met Council funds for like that equity grant? Sorry. Thank you. I should have let you stay up there.
Chair, Commissioner Alper, I'm going to bring up a slide just to break down a little bit of the funding, some funding details for you. Bear with me. So there are a number of council grant programs that the trail with the long-range approved plan would be eligible to receive that include the Parks and Trails Legacy Fund, the Regional Park Bonding Program, the Park and Trail Acquisition Opportunity Fund, Regional Park Competitive Equity Grant Program, and it does need to be an approved plan. The non-park implementing agencies may not. They cannot receive these regional funds. However, there are several other pools of funding that the Midtown Greenway could receive through federal or state funding opportunities, including things like regional solicitation and state funding like bonding that are available to both city and county partners. So just want to clarify, there's lots of different funding opportunities out there. Regional trail status, if the long-range plan was approved, would make us eligible for these funding types. I can provide more information on the actual funding breakdown if it's helpful, but we'll pause there. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. I think I'd just like to finish up and just say, we've spent a lot of time on this as a board, and I'm personally excited to pass this tonight and move on to other initiatives. So I guess with that, I would like to propose a couple changes. One, that we change the word master to long-range plan.
Point of order. If you're suggesting amendments, you need to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Oh, I'm not making it yet because I still have more time, and then I'm going to ask. But I would like to tell you what they include first, so you can be informed. And I'd just like to add the word approximately before each. There are two instances of 70,000, just because I think it implies a level of precision that honestly, I don't think we have. So with that, I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules to make those three changes.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, onward.
Okay, yep. Oh, they're made.
Been suspended.
Oh, the rules are suspended. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to, on page 3 of the paper before you, in the clause, it says, whereas the Midtown Greenway must have an approved master plan for regional park and trail funding to be allocated to it, and I would like to change master to long range. And then on that same page, there's an instance of 70,000, and I'd like to put in approximately for that. And then in the resolved clause that mentions a $70,000 annual budget, put in the word, again, approximately before that.
Second.
Discussion. Okay. Okay, to the amendment, okay? Any amendment? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I am very supportive of that. I was going to ask that, or state, whatever, that, yeah, the 70,000 has not been an etched in stone amount, and so I think that's very important for us all to note. And so I think these clarifications are very important, and I am supportive of those two, I guess, or three changes, actually. So, yes, Commissioner Menz.
Just really quick, this might not be to the specific amendment, but it is about the 70,000. Like, we ask for that funding, or does it just come and we don't use it, it goes to the next year? Do we know that level of exactness?
No. Director Arvidsson, to the rescue again.
I'm supportive of the amendment.
President Forney, Commissioner Menz, all of the funding that would come from Parks and Trails, O&M lottery, and regional bonding for the regional park and trail system is allocated through the CIP annually. So there is no direct linkage between the amount of money that a park and trail generates and what it gets through the CIP. Based on the total, these items on the screen before you, based on the total visitation, population, and other factors, we get one big chunk of money in all those different programs, which then you, the board, driven by the equity metrics for regional parks, choose to allocate. So that 70 would be a part of that. And there are the approximately 70. There are scenarios in which the addition of the greenway could generate an additional approximately 70. There are also scenarios where it could generate 0 or something more than that. It's impossible at this point to pin down that exact number, but the board would have an opportunity to determine the annual, biannual, triannual investment in the greenway through the CIP process.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I just had one more quick question for Director Arvidsson. We have some we have some guardrails, that's a negative term, but we have some boundaries set within this amendment around high cost, low cost focus of the use of these funds. If for some year, the city had a big plan to replace and a bonding request to replace the lighting. Could we ever, as an entity, I think the answer is no, give our public money to another public entity to support a large infrastructure project if it aligned with our goals and we knew it was a needed amenity and was not our role and responsibility per this amendment?
President Forney, Commissioner Schaefer, I think generally yes. So we have done collaborative and cooperative development agreements with other agencies. You've recently approved one with regard to the SEAM, where we are actually sending some of our funds under agreement to Hennepin County to build infrastructure that will become parkland. There would have to be a detailed agreement in place for that. The challenge will be, and I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn, but any of the items that we would spend state money on would have to be in an approved master plan. So if we exclude high-cost amenities from an approved master plan, then we would never be able to invest in them in any way, shape, or form with that state money.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I think the idea behind restricting the planning process as well as the spending of those funds was really something I see as positive about this amendment because it promotes a public expectation that's realistic about what we as a park board bring to the table as a regional trail status and what we can and cannot do within our limited budget. So that's my perspective on why I see that as really important. And of course, we have been hearing from the Sioux Line Gardeners for all year, and to reopen up this idea of where to put the ramp when they've suggested 2 or 3 other alternatives is painful for me as district commissioner in that area to think about. That's just my own personal input into that. But I also think for us to be funding, maintaining, et cetera, I don't think that's our role as parks. I mean, we get into all these infrastructure projects because we're good partners with Metro Transit and all these people, and I support that. But at the same time, according to the 2000 bike trail report, we need to honor that and what has been set before us as guidance as we move forward. So that's just my only response to a narrowed planning process.
Point of information, are we still considering though the amendment? Yeah, okay.
Clarity and all that? Okay, so we are in the amended amendment and everything, and I guess I feel that if the public process is curtailed, to me, I think that is a real liability, and I guess we'll have to inch along without it, but anyway, that is a real, anyway, so all those in favor of the amended amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, that action carries. So now yes.
No. No, I was waiting till you, yeah.
Okay, now you want to talk to the amended amendment.
Point of information. Do we have to announce that the rules are no longer suspended?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Point of information. When we suspended the rules, we noted the purpose for which the rules were suspended. We conducted that piece of business. That piece of business is done. So now the rules that were in place before the suspension for that purpose are back.
Okay, thank you.
So we are to the amended amendment. Okay, which I believe that Commissioner Benny
Thank
wants
you.
to speak to.
Yes, thank you, President Forty. And I think it's a question really for Mr. Arvidsson again, and it's related to that idea of, a full master plan or, a full program. Now, the joint powers agreement is not yet finalized, right? Okay, I'm seeing a nod.
Correct.
And so could the joint powers work include figuring out how to develop a full plan with community engagement that identifies, though, likely best places for that funding request? So, for example, I'm sure one of the first things that people want to put down on some kind of a strategy plan or a long-range plan is that darn bridge. And that is always going to be, I would think, federal, right? So, and who would lead it, right? So this work is saying, well, the park board wouldn't lead those conversations to acquire those federal funds, but maybe we're suggesting the city should as the operator and owner of the trail. So could the joint powers agreement be, lend some kind of clarity to how that could actually go while still developing a full document and a full plan?
President Forney, Commissioner Benny, yes. When staff proceed through a park or trail planning process and associated agreements, we do the engagement with community, with partners, with staff, and we bring to the board for consideration those agreements, and they can be amended at that time. And so yes, a joint powers agreement would consider responsibilities throughout the corridor, and a park and trail plan would normally consider all the potential built amenities throughout the corridor, including the bridge, which I would say under the statement about community engagement that is in the amendment before you, we would not be able to talk about with the public, because that would be a major amenity.
Okay. Is another question for you, Mr. Arvidsson, is the city is the operator of the trail, and so do you know if they have a CIP that they've been working on for things beyond pavement maintenance and things like that? Do they have somebody? Do they have a manager for this amenity, and do they create that kind of needs list that's about really improvements, because that's really what we're talking about here?
Chair, Commissioner Bene, my understanding is that the city has an annual capital allocation to the Greenway, but I'm not aware of any specific project with a project manager that is currently underway. So that's the best of my understanding. There are some bridge department projects that are active right now along the Greenway corridor.
That makes sense. There are a lot of bridges. Okay. And then, just a kind and respectful comment to the public that, is talking about the amount of work that this will be regardless of what we do. You can see that the staff has already put considerable time and energy into this. The board has, and others. This is. And it takes time from other things that can occur. And we're actually in our 2024 budget right now. We're seeking actually to add somebody to the planning team, and we may not be successful in that request. So this is, there is a finite amount of time, and those are resources that are currently going to this. So there's a cost there. I'm just going to put that out there. That's it for me.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I just want to make the point that I think everybody is supportive and wants a bridge over the river. I don't think that's something that there's any disagreement over. And so for us to set aside some of these improvements that really we don't have a budgetary impact over, I think, again, really communicates to the public we're staying in our scope of what we're saying we're going to fund. And we're going to leave it to the city and to their annual capital improvement budget for the Greenway when they want to do the lights. I mean, we all know they want the lights replaced, and that's not something that I would think we would have a lot of disagreement over. A couple other things. I really think this resolution communicates to us as commissioners and to as a staff that we really support bikeways in our city, whether they're ours or somebody else's. I really think this shows a generosity of spirit of trying to consider how to improve them. I mean, we've already been a member of the Lake Street Greenway Partnership. I don't know if we all knew this, but we pay $10,000 a year to the Lake Street Greenway Partnership as an annual donation. And I'm just going to throw this out there for our budgetary process. Because this plan will be funded primarily from the general budget and not the regional parks budget, maybe we could retain that $10,000 and put it towards planning's work on the Midtown Greenway plan for this year, a one-time cycle, something just to kind of throw out there. But normally we don't do neighborhood park plans with regional dollars, but we are doing general budget for the regional plan in this case, so I just want to throw that out as something to consider. The other pieces that are still unclear, just so we can have a dialogue about it here in public, is I'm not sure if we're capital only, how the customer service piece of the regional trail would function. Because we currently take a lot of calls around the Greenway, and I, as a district commissioner, take a lot of emails around the Greenway. If we have no dedicated funds in the realm of operations at all, again, this will be another area of our budget where our general budget will be supporting the regional trail system if we don't think about that. So that's just, I'm throwing it out there. I don't have the answers to that, and staff could get the answers to that through this planning process, would be really exciting. So I am supportive of this amendment. Thank you.
Commissioner Alper?
Thank you. I wasn't going to bring this up, but since you did about the piece about our general operating budget supporting the planning work happening, just thinking about the regional funding coming to us this year specifically, just I did want to mention, it's on the slide too, that, or it was on the preceding slide, that the regional trail planning is actually eligible for regional trail dollars. I'm sorry, it's on a, if somebody's able to, I see Carrie nodding, but it's on it was on the on slide 3, if you're able to. Would you be able to switch it? I just bring that up because if there is an opportunity, maybe that's a way to have the regional funds supporting a regional asset already, given the additional funding coming to the regional system. There it is. Long-range planning is an eligible expense prior to long-range plan approval. Just bringing that up. But I would like to say thank you, commissioners, again, for considering this resolution before you. I plan to vote in favor of the amendment. I think we don't need to ask questions about things we already know the answer to. I think we can make our case later to the Met Council. I would be that this is an eligible plan. I do worry a little bit about excluding some of those higher cost capital aspects, especially the lights, if they're not, if for the future. But I don't want to confuse the public. I think it's time to move on and talk about other pieces of the system that we own, that we operate, that that we've all spent a significant amount of effort on this, and I'd like to get back to the central gym parks of the system. Thanks.
Thank you. First of all, I have to comment about the fact that the depth of clarity, I think, that is coming out as a result of this amendment, whatever, the rehashing that's happened in numerous ways. This is a complex thing, and I appreciate that we, like I say, given clarity to, who and what and roles and stuff like that, who's in this lane, who's in that lane, et cetera. That's very, very essential. I've commented often that, how does this mirror the Kenilworth? It's, there's so many of our trails that we have an understanding and our partners have an understanding what we expect of them, what they expect of us, et cetera, is so important. And I also want to comment about when we as commissioners are initiating resolutions or amendments or whatever they might be and everything, please, please, please access staff as much as possible, because unfortunately, there have been quite a few unintended consequences, and I just want to make sure that, it's not something that staff is driving any agenda. It's a matter they are there as a professional resource, and, they will have to undo any of the errors that we happen to put out there. So anyway, they are always readily available. So on that, excuse me, yes, Commissioner Mischief.
I wanted to say one more point, and that is, I really feel like this could be interpreted as we're afraid to take responsibility. I don't view this action, this narrowing of action in that perspective. I view it as highlighting and lifting up the important role that the city and county and HICRA already give to this space, and really highlighting to them the importance of what they bring to this trail. And we can't let this trail go down. We really can't. And if we were to take on all the capital for this place, I believe that in the long range, it would be a decrease in service on the Greenway. So I see this, hopefully, the city and the county and HICRA will hear that we really appreciate what they do and we need them at the table for the benefit of the Greenway.
Thank you. Any other comments, people? Okay, with that, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. So to the main motion.
As amended.
As amended, thank you. All those in favor? Unless we have any discussion, I don't see anything. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action also carries. Okay, I believe then we are, no, are we?
Finance.
Are we,
On behalf of Admin and Finance.
thank you, sorry. Who is admin and finance?
I am. Hang on one second. We are. May I have approval for the agenda? I would like to call the admin and finance.
No, you have an item.
sorry.
Been
On the full board.
2023-114.
I can bring the motion forward.
Yep, thank you.
Resolution 2023-114, I move resolution approving change order number 2 in the amount of $38,000, $389.45, and amending the 2022 and 2023 capital improvement program to transfer a combined total of $80,155.19 from the 2022 and 2023 NPP 20 Capital Project Contingency Fund to the Northeast Athletic Field Park Improvements Project budget to account for unanticipated project costs.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that item?
I do have an amendment that was publicly put out, so I'd like to make a motion to amend the proposal to include 3 additional whereas clauses. Do I say the whereas clauses before it's seconded? Or do I wait for a second?
Are they in the agenda packet?
Yes.
Yes.
Whereas process, okay. I don't believe you need to read from them. Thank you. Unless anybody else.
But you do
We
need
need
a
a
second.
second.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Discussion then? Discussion on the items? Not hearing any discussion, although I'm just reviewing it myself, just to make sure.
I can discuss the item really quickly.
Please.
So 3 whereas clauses basically to ask the staff to explore some other field-related issues to a new field that might be helpful. There's no funding allocation for this. It's just for the staff to explore those costs.
No, it has to be resolved if you're going to direct it to something. That's what I was confused by.
Yes, I'm sorry. Commissioner Musich.
Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak, President Forney. As submitted, the whereas clauses can't direct staff to do anything. That's what resolve clauses are for. So if you think they're going to direct people to do things, that's not what will happen. They're supposed to provide context. And that's all they would be doing, should they be added in this form.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak to something? Your light's on. Nothing more. I have some difficulty with this. Yeah, I will not be supporting this. To me, directing staff to get into this type of detail, I don't feel is appropriate, and therefore I will not be supporting this amendment. I understand the intent, but I don't believe that this is the appropriate place to be putting this. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Bene?
Thank you, President Forney. Yeah, I guess that since it's not a resolved clause, it's whereases, and I know there's a sense of urgency here, but I think we've done some pushy work around here lately for some of these issues. And I'll also say that I believe that the reason that this additional funding is needed is because there was debris in the soil and things like that. So it's an environmental remediation, which I think we need to, not interfere with that being appropriately resolved. So I won't be supporting this either, but I am, supportive of we've done some work around some of this advancing for softball and so on. So anyway, yep.
Commissioner Mend?
Thank you, Commissioners and President Forney. I did do some digging with staff on this to make sure that it was just whereas clauses instead of resolved clauses, to make sure that we weren't sort of, going out of order. But I did want to provide the context, and I think that adding these to this order around this particular field is important because we are going to be designating this as a premier field. Mm-hmm. It is not a premier field because of certain aspects. So I'm just asking staff, and maybe the context is fine, and I don't know if Assistant Superintendent Schroeder can come up and provide some other context. I'm looking for an avenue to figure out how we can make these fields more appropriately designed to support youth activity at those fields. By having a shed in the Northeast Athletic Fields, it allows coaches to arrive via bike instead of car. It allows a lot of other things. If there's a permanent BIF there, like thinking about those opportunities. So, and of course, the fencing.
Any other comments? Yes, Assistant Schroeder.
President Forney, Commissioner Menz. I think what we could do, or what I would like to be able to do, is to work with you to put this in the form of a proper resolution. We can attach some ideas of estimated cost for these improvements and also begin to identify potential sources of funds. So we could actually operationalize something as opposed to just studying it. I think staff won't disagree with you about the importance of transforming this field into a compliant field accommodating fast pitch softball. But I think we would want to work with you to create a resolution that actually clearly addresses costs, estimated costs, and funding sources, and to be able to do that quickly so that we can take advantage of the contract that we still have open at Northeast Fields.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other lights. To the amendment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
That amendment does not carry, that action doesn't carry. So on then to the resolution. Relief has been moved. All those, any questions to that? Okay. All those in favor then of the resolution 2023-114, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Nay.
That action carries. So I am going to recess the board and move to standards and conduct in light of our chair being gone. Vice Chair, usage.
Thank you. The time being 6:50 p.m., and in lieu of our chair, who's absent this evening, I will call to order the Standards and Conduct Committee. Could the secretary please take the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Abene.
Here.
Vice Chair Musich.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve our agenda this evening?
So moved?
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We have an agenda. We also have some minutes. Could I get someone to move the minutes from January 4th, 2023?
So moved.
Thank you. Not seeing any discussion on those. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We have adopted our minutes. Congratulations, everyone. This evening, we have before us Resolution 2023-134. It's a resolution amending the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board rules of the board. Could I get a motion for this item, please?
So moved.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Olson. I am going to pass the torch to President Forney to explain the rationale behind this change for those of you that are interested.
Thank you. Yes, merely to move the superintendent, reports of officers, before petitions and communications. Right now, it happens to be a board rule that is in the order of the agenda. So this would move them before, like I say, petitions and communications, because we feel that, first of all, the topics align better, but also, as I think we've all witnessed, is that the first half an hour, we have so much of the public here, and to be as transparent as possible, to do as much of our business in the presence of the eyes of the community, I think is essential. And Superintendent Bangora has agreed, and so I would like to have that moved.
Alrighty, not seeing any lights. I will take this to a vote. All those in favor of adopting this rule change, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And with that, I will adjourn the Standards and Conduct Committee.
On to Admin and Finance.
The time is 6:52. I'd like to call the Admin Finance Committee to order. Secretary Ringgold, can you please take the roll?
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Menz. Vice President Crudup. Co-Chair Thompson.
We don't have quorum.
All right.
You want it?
Billy?
Does anyone have a song?
No.
Sorry, my bladder was full. I gotta go to the bathroom at some point.
Is Becky coming? Commissioner Thompson coming?
We don't need her for quorum.
Okay. Secretary Ringgold, could you take the roll one more time?
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Menz.
Present.
Vice President Crudup. Co-Chair Thompson.
Present.
Co-Chair Schaefer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. May I have a motion to approve the Admin and Finance Committee meeting minutes of June 21st, 2023?
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That moves. We have 3 action items before us this evening. May I have a committee member please move the first one?
I'll move Resolution 2023-126. It's a resolution extending the timeline of the fundraising agreement between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the Phelps Activities Council, and allowing for certain naming rights of field improvements by major corporate donors intended to support a conversion of a natural turf field to an artificial field at Phelps Field Park, a part of the Minneapolis Park System.
Great, and we have Mr. Duzman here this evening to give us a presentation. I'm assuming we'd like to hear your presentation, please.
Co-Chair Schaefer, Commissioners. Unfortunately, I have no presentation, so I'm just here for questions tonight.
That's fine.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's not a problem at all. Commissioner Thompson, looks like she has her light on for a question. Mr. Duzman.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Schaefer, and I apologize that I missed the first roll call. I'm still running up the stairs. I just have a question of how the turf idea came up, and I I would love to hear, also, I know Commissioner Musich, this is in her district, she understands the details better than I. And again, I apologize, I was out of town most of last week and didn't quite wrap my head around all of what this was. So if either Mr. Duzman or Commissioner Schaefer wants to maybe enlighten me on a little backstory of that, I would welcome it. Or Musich, forgive me.
Commissioner Thompson, would Assistant Superintendent Schroeder be?
Yes, that would also be excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Schaefer and Co-Chair Thompson, I'll start and others can fill in. It was actually several years ago under former President Brad Bourne that we were invited to visit with Pastor Jim Halper from the Phillips Athletic Council about changes to the field, to look at the conditions of the field. And at that time, he proposed a venture to raise funds to convert the natural turf field into an artificial turf field. And I think that discussion dates back probably 4 years now, maybe even longer than that. Following that, by probably a year or so, Pastor Halper noted that he had a potential line of funding to get a portion of the funds that would be necessary for that conversion, which I think we estimated at the time to be about $1.5 million through a grant through the National Football League. That, I think, was successful and brought maybe $300,000 or something like that, a small fraction. We continued to allow him to pursue funding for a period of time. We actually put off a capital improvement project that would have renovated the natural turf field, and that his agreement has now run out. And so this is at his request, allowing an extension of time and kind of an expansion of the fundraising opportunities to look at naming rights potentially around some features of whatever he would be able to raise. What's important from a staff position is that we don't want to put off the capital project any longer if it's demonstrated that he can't raise the funds. This has been going on for, I'm sure Commissioner Mush could probably confirm, I'm thinking 4 years or maybe more.
Thank you. That was what I was able to conclude, is that it seems like the amount of time taken versus the percentage so far raised seems like maybe it's too big of a hill for this particular group. And I'm curious if if it seems like this additional time does it seem, I suppose layman's terms, would it seem feasible given the past? Is naming rights really locked into the ability to, I mean, did they have an idea of how naming rights would help in fundraising?
Chair Schaefer, Co-Chair Thompson, just the idea that there could be fundraising could somehow be incentivized through naming rights, I think, is as far as they got. There weren't any additional potential funders identified when we met with Pastor Halper a month ago or whenever recently.
Okay, thank you. And does I know we're talking about a naming policy. Would this conflict with our initial? Maybe our initial conversations are just ideas at this point, but I know I've chatted with different people about really having our naming policy. Would this conflict with that?
Chair Schaefer, Co-Chair Thompson, it's why it's identified in here that it would require the board to allow that to happen, because right now we don't have the capacity to allow a funder to raise funds with naming rights attached to it.
Thank you. Did they give any reason why they wanted artificial turf, by the way?
Chair Schaefer, Co-Chair Thompson, the field there is really intensively used, and I think the ability to use it at the same level that they have been without having the field be so compacted is probably the primary reason. It's just really expanding the potential for the use of the field.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for now. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Is there any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Musich.
I believe Commissioner Menz had his light on before me.
Commissioner Mintz.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. Yeah, I'm wondering about the naming rights too. Does this set us up for a future policy, or does it set precedents? Because I know that we've talked about this. I know that Secretary Ringgold has mentioned like developing a new naming rights policy or something around this. I do think it probably is enticing to funders to have something named, but I don't want to know.
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner Menz, I think, again, I note that we identified it in the resolution because it does potentially, without having done that, set a precedent that we would be encouraging that. This would be a case specific to this particular effort at this particular park in terms of naming rights, the way that we've written this. It's not changing the naming, it's not changing any of the current policy with the exception of this particular effort.
Well, okay, so it wouldn't be setting any sort of future precedent for future, okay.
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner Menz, I'm not sure that it wouldn't.
Yeah.
People wouldn't interpret it that way, but it's not intended to be that way.
Okay. From my personal point of view, I think that allowing funders to name fields might be something to explore. I don't know if that's what we want to do with this resolution, but that would be something that could be a good outcome if we're allowing people to invest in our fields and, you know, make sure that youth are maintained. I'm a little bit more concerned about outside sources determining whether or not we have a turf or a grass field. I'm more concerned about that with this resolution than I am with the naming rights.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich.
Thank you very much, Chair Schaefer, for allowing me to speak. So as was mentioned, yes, this is a park in my district. The field conditions here have been pretty atrocious for a number of years. The heavy use does not allow us really to rest it ever. It's not fenced, it's in a bowl. The irrigation sucks, the grading is not awesome. All of that was stuff that we had hoped to address as part of the capital improvement project that is scheduled for this location. When that was added to the CIP, President Bourne was approached by Pastor Jim to enter into a fundraising agreement with the park board to put in artificial turf in this location so that the conditions would hopefully be better. I think that remains to be seen if artificial turf provides a better playing condition than poorly maintained due to the use levels natural turf. Yeah, so I don't know. It's hard to say. And although we are trying not to set a precedent, I think we would be if we were to adopt this agreement, because we are saying this group gets to do this. So we would essentially be, I think, put in a position where if we turned anyone else down, they would say we were being unfair. So I think that's an important thing for the committee to consider this evening. I did support the resolution to enter into this fundraising agreement, but it did not have a naming component to it at that time. That is something new. So staff, I had a quick question for you. We had received funds from Hennepin County, youth sports grant funds, I believe, that were for the field. Are those still available? And would the extension of this put us past the deadline that we would need to put in place contracts to spend that money, or does this allow us to enter into those contracts this winter during the bidding process that would typically happen for this type of project?
President Forney, Commissioner Musich, the latter. The funds are still there, and I believe we're still within that period where we can access them to be implementing this as we would next year, 2024.
Okay, so the intention is if there's not enough funding to move forward with the artificial turf field as is being asked for us to implement by the biggest users of this space, we would then enter into the bidding process this winter with the intention of doing that field renovation in this location next year.
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner Musich, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Bennett?
Thank you, Co-Chair Schaefer. I'm not on this committee, but I appreciate a chance to talk about this a little bit. So I would like to add my voice to some concern about the naming rights without, the board has not enacted, I think, a policy on that, as I understand. And I believe it was actually a question that was asked in our community survey. If I had been surveyed on that as a citizen, I would be not in favor of naming rights. I don't want to be bombarded with corporate logos in our parks if we can avoid it, because they're everywhere else. No disrespect meant. But the other thing I'll say is that, and I'm not against artificial turf. I think it makes sense in a lot of locations where there's turnaround time, a lot of use in a bowl, soil conditions. But I've been on projects at my day job where we've implemented quite a lot of it, and they're the beads. The beads get loose. But the other thing is it's emerging, and I believe the way we've approached it, it actually counts as net impervious, net an increase in impervious. And I've done research on that through a federal listserv of people that work in the stormwater realm. There is no evidence that this really is anything other than impervious. So it does actually then increase your obligations to build stormwater BMPs as part of the turf, which is good because maybe you can collect the beads. So I'm just saying that that's probably not on the radar and probably wasn't in effect for prior artificial turf fields that have been built by the MPRB. But I think for new ones coming forward, I think they have to almost be considered impervious. So,
Assistant Superintendent.
Chair Schaefer and Commissioner Benny, I'm going to just refer to two things, and I'll probably defer to Secretary Ringgold for a little help on some historical on previous. One of the things that we've committed as staff to do, and this is just in general related to the use of artificial turf, is before we implement the next artificial turf field, we'll come back to you bringing state-of-the-art research so we really understand what's going on. John Duzman has been the one tracking that for us for a number of years, including going to a couple of national conferences on that. And we agreed several years ago that we would not implement another field without getting the board's concurrence on the best practices that are available, kind of the state of the art at the time when that would be happening. And even with this proposal, we don't know what the makeup of the artificial turf surface would be.
Okay.
The second thing I wanted to mention is that and maybe Secretary Ringgold will remember the Farview field. I believe that didn't trigger any incremental increases because the watershed at the time considered the existing field to be so compacted that it essentially didn't allow for any infiltration to begin with.
Well, that was generous of them. So.
And I don't know if that's if you recall that, Secretary Ringgold.
Secretary Ringgold.
Commissioner Schaefer, Assistant Superintendent Schroeder, I don't actually recall that, but I remember I don't remember how we got through it, but we got through it. And I do remember there was a significant, actually, retention of water within the field because you have a depth of substrate that works in some ways around some water retention, but we would have to look back at that.
And I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that there's been some change in thinking about how they've been getting studied because there are more of these in community parks than there were, years ago. But the last thing I'll just add to that, and again, I am not opposed to the use of these things, but the other thing that I think concerns me about them more than anything, I think, is the waste and production associated with them because they last for 10 years or whatever. I don't know how frequently we can turn them around here, but they are. They don't have a long lifespan and they go back into the environment in some way. So I just wanted to say that since this is the first chance we've had to talk about these sorts of fields. But again, I do support them in the right location, so thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Benny. Secretary Ringgold?
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. I want to take a moment just to talk a little bit about naming and some of the questions that were raised tonight. We do actually have quite a bit of precedent in the system for naming fields in particular. That's one thing that has considerable naming within the system. And in most cases, that was done actually by suspending your board policy and procedure in order to name it. The other one that's vivid in my mind is that there's within the fundraising agreement for waterworks, there were several items that were allowed to be named in there, and I believe that also required you suspending your board policy and procedure to do it. Your current policy and procedure allows for naming based not on monetary contributions. We hope to soon have one in front of you. There's actually one significantly drafted and actually could be used as a guideline in terms of thinking about this. It has to do with how much of a financial contribution in relation to the overall expenditure of, or the overall cost of that space. It also establishes timelines, so it's not named into perpetuity, it's named for the life of that particular asset. So there's been organizationally some really good thinking on it, and it feels like this board is ripe to fully consider it and hopefully either approve it or take it down, whichever you end up choosing after likely some community engagement and some additional thinking around racial equity.
Thank you for that background information. Commissioner Menz.
Yes, thank you, Secretary Ringgold. That's really exciting. I mean, I'm really excited to hear about the naming rights and how it might apply to fields, and it probably will have some implementation for the TAC. I'm going to be voting for this resolution simply because I think that there's a lot of money to be raised, and if the Phelps Activity Council is able to do that and we get a large donor, it does look like a good test case. This field has been difficult for a long, long time. I'm also really encouraged to hear Commissioner Benny and this discussion around turf versus grass. I mean, I have opinions about the differences, but I think it's something that this board needs to take up and figure out what is our stance around turf, when is it appropriate, when is it not, and grass fields, because it is a really huge issue within the system, and there's arguments for and against. So I would appreciate, I don't know if I can request a study item around turf versus grass at some point in the future. Okay, I can't. So, yes, I would like to request a study item of the benefits and what Director Duesman has found in his study and like where we're at right now, especially around the stormwater, because there's lots of funders who might be able to support us in looking at the current science and technology around turf. I will say that turf allows for more play, but what are the risks? So I think that looking at that would be really helpful. But I'll be supporting this resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Menz. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Schaefer. I need to I will support this out of committee and I reserve the right to change my mind. And I want to just be on record of saying this is kind of a three strikes in my mind, but I totally respect what people are saying surrounding the use of this space. Turf, I have a long history with turf, not only the massive amounts of injuries that young people get ripping apart their ACL, but also it is just so damaging to the environment. The little rubber pellets get over everywhere. You can't exactly vacuum them up when it spills over to the natural grass. It is truly, it is something that I ideologically am just opposed to. So I guess I sort of want that on record. Like I support this out of committee with reservation. The naming rights, I also am worried about that slippery slope. We can maybe address this later on. And then something that I have done a little research on the organization itself that we would be partnering with, which if any colleagues want to ask me why I won't put this, but like I have some issues with that too a little bit. So that being said, I will support this out of committee, but I think we need to massage out some of those details. And then I did have one question for Assistant Superintendent Schroeder, and that was around timetables. If we pause this, I believe it says until March 2024, and they still don't hit their fundraising target, right? We're faced again with either extending this or saying, okay, go. And how would that affect this? Because otherwise we're basically ready to go to replace this field with natural grass, correct? So how could that potentially impact our timelines?
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner Thompson, I actually think that we will be checking with the funding, with the donor organization on a regular basis, and I think it would become pretty clear to us how successful they are. They need to run their potential grant requests or donation requests past us to make sure that there's no conflicts with dollars that we're pursuing from potentially the same funder. So we will know how active they are in pursuing funds and how successful they are. And I would think that by the beginning of the fourth quarter of this year, we'll have a very good understanding of how likely they are to reach their funding goal, which actually has now gone beyond $1.5 million. We think they're probably closer to $2 million by the beginning of the year.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Great. I really think some interesting ideas have been brought up here, and particularly the idea of possibly striking the naming rights for the next go-around. If it passes out of committee, we could add amendment to strike the naming rights until we have, really before March, we might have an idea of what that naming policy may be. I am encouraged, and maybe Assistant Superintendent could share this, of the $600,000 that's been raised to date, I know $300,000 of it is ours. Who raised the other $300,000 from the Minnesota Vikings and those other entities?
Chair Schaefer, that was the Phelps Athletic Council directly.
Great. So they have had some success. I like the timestamp. I like the fact that this is maybe the last go-around. I also, is this the entity where the Boys and Girls Club work out of? Yes. I think really, yeah, they are different. Boys and Girls Club also received some interesting donations recently. I have no idea what they're using those for. But if there was a partner organization that was on site, I could see that be an easy naming, possibly, thing. I'm just talking here. So that's just some ideas I'm throwing out there. So any other questions or comments on where this stands currently? Great. Let's take a vote. All those in favor of moving this from Admin Finance to the full board, Resolution 2023-126, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? That motion passes. May I have a committee member move the next resolution?
I'll move Resolution 2023-132. It's a resolution requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation set the maximum property tax levy for the 2024 budget at an estimated amount of $82,776,380. No, that's wrong. Sorry. I shouldn't have picked this. I can't do numbers at this time of night. $82,776,380. Did I say that right that time? Awesome.
Yes.
An increase of 5.51%.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions around this resolution for staff or between ourselves? I see no lights on. Let's take a vote on Resolution 2023-132. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 2023-132 passes. Great, the last resolution.
I'll move Resolution 2023-121, a resolution approving a maintenance agreement with Minnehaha Creek Watershed District regarding the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's obligation to maintain stormwater management facilities set forth per Minnesota statutes, chapters 103B and 103D.
Great. We do have staff available to answer some questions if someone would like some around this. This is actually the resolution that we are going to be bringing forward to the full board this evening, so it's really important that those of us with expertise in this area may contribute to the conversation, and those of us that do not have expertise in this area contribute to the conversation. So, thank you. Commissioner Abene, or Commissioner Musich, I'm sorry, were you first?
I was, but
okay, please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to encourage my colleagues to pass this evening out of committee and at the full board. This agreement is holding up the construction of the work at Sibley Park, which really needs to get done this year so that we can bring Rec Plus back there. Families were heartbroken we were unable to support Rec Plus during the construction period. It just was not feasible, and I would love to see the project get done this year. So please pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich, for that insight and background information. Commissioner Abene.
Thank you, Co-Chair Schaefer. I'm not on this committee, but I'll be voting on this a little bit later. Just a quick question for staff. The this is a condition of a permit. And the permit is, I think it's listed as 23007, and the permit's already been issued and assigned, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we already are under permit to do that, which means that we have a condition or a requirement to fulfill. But, you know, I guess I just want to say, and again, I've said this a lot tonight, respectfully submitted. I'm hoping that we can, as we're working on our stormwater initiative, that we can really think about the way that we've been maybe doing these things. So we're building a stormwater management system as part of this project, and we're then agreeing to take care of it by recognizing another authority that isn't us, even though we are obligated under the NPDES permit to inspect, maintain, operate our BMPs. So, and I guess I have a question also for Council Rice about in what ways, I know that there are examples of places where we defer or capitulate to other authorities. Like, for example, I would suppose, you know, the city of Minneapolis permits the restaurant operations on park land and things like that. But in what way would we be obligated in a kind of a land management way to build something that we then are obligated to another party on our land? Does it make sense for us to give up authority?
I think the question started out with Mr. Schroeder, but it's been directed to me.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with Chair Schaefer. Commissioner Benny, we did look into this issue, Mr. Schroeder and I, and the Watershed District did adopt a rule, followed law. It came out with a SONAR, Statement on Need and Reasonableness of a Rule, which they have authority to, and their rule does apply to other governmental bodies in the jurisdiction. We have not contested their jurisdiction, and we've complied with their rules in the past. So I think that to raise the broader issue as concerns this particular project might not be the right time to deal with it.
And I agree with that. I guess I'm just trying to flag this issue. So I did check with the city of Richfield. It's also in the Watershed District, and they've had an MOU since 2009 with the Watershed District, and they don't get these types of agreements. They don't build as many BMPs as we do because they mostly work in the right-of-way where we're working on our parkland. So I just wanted to kind of flag these issues for my colleagues and hope that we can actually enter into a similar agreement with the Watershed District and understand that when we build these things, we're not maintaining these things because other entity is obligating us to do so. We're doing them because we're actually already obligated to do that under our federal permit. So that's all I wanted to say. And I do actually hope this moves forward tonight, but I'm not going to vote for it.
Chair Schaefer, if I may comment, and Commissioner Benny, that was a discussion that I've been engaged with the Watershed District since your concerns are first raised, and we already have a draft of other program agreements that they've done, which would be what the city of Richfield has entered into and other municipalities within the scope of their watershed. And we'll be pursuing the same kind of authority through a programmatic agreement, and that would be coming before the board probably in the next couple of months.
Thank you both very much for that input and growing knowledge. I really appreciate it. All those in favor of Resolution 2023, if there are no more questions, -121, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? That motion passes. And I will adjourn the Admin Finance Committee.
And I will reconvene the full board and bring forward from Admin and Finance.
Sure. I will bring forward Resolution 2023-121, resolution approving a maintenance agreement with Minnehaha Creek Watershed District regarding the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's obligation to maintain stormwater management facilities set forth per Minnesota statutes, Chapter 103B and 103D.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion on that item? Discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That action does carry. All right, so that's the end of our agenda. So we will move on to petitions and communications. Commissioner Menz.
Oh, great. So it's been a busy time. So I would like to say that I've been out in the parks quite a bit with myself and my family, and I've really taking a strong kinship to Lake Nokomis and the amenities provided there. Just sitting, I mean, my wife and I have found a nice little spot, and there was a great blue heron that just flew up, and the lake water is just so amazingly clean. So I encourage all of you to get out and just go to the lake, preferably Nokomis, because it's great. I went to the laser light show on, I guess, the 3rd, so we all rode down there. The feedback was great from me. I loved it. I thought it was a great example of people gathering in the park in a very peaceful and joyous way. My son was bored to death, but he's 15, so it was the boringest thing ever, according to him. But I'm like, just go around, watch the people. So we've also been doing quite a bit of engagement with the neighborhoods, and just getting out and hearing from people about the fireworks. I've been asking people just wherever I go if they miss them, what their opinions are, and I think that that's something that we talked about earlier, that community engagement can be just asking constituents questions. And the feedback that I've gotten is that they're not really missed. I also wanted to say that I did feel a lot of concerns around the Stone Arch Bridge closing. So that was a challenge for our district, and I know, and I understand the purpose, and I actually am very supportive of the decisions that were made by our organization. I want to commend our superintendent and the staff that really thought through and tried some new things in order to maintain some public safety, or at least measures that they felt were necessary in order for them to do the job. I also went down to the Stone Arch Bridge around 9:30 on the night of the Boom Island and talked to the Street Reach folks, and they were very helpful and they were very supportive, and they said it was going very smoothly. They were able to reach out and really talk to youth and talk to folks, and that although it looked like a futuristic crime scene of the negative utopia science fiction that I watch, the display was not the best, but the functionality I felt was, in my opinion, necessary. And maybe we re-examine that. Maybe it's not as much that we need to do, but there's obviously something going on in the city, and things happen in our parks, and I don't want to discredit or ignore bikers or pedestrian concerns, because I love the Stone Arch Bridge. But I do think that there are necessary things that we're going to need to do in a very empathetic way to make sure that we're maintaining the parks for everyone, or at least as many people as we possibly can. And although it didn't look that way with the closing of a bridge or a major amenity, for this time period, I felt like it was the right move. But I'm glad we moved it back till 11 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Schaefer. I guess I'll just say two things. One is I appreciate constituents' concern about the safety issues of last night, and we can be sure those things will be front of mind as we head into next year, and as Chief Ohado alluded to, maybe even talk about before then if it's an ongoing issue in pockets of our system. And then secondly, I just want to say thank you to all the commissioners for a unanimous vote on the Cedar Isles Master Plan. That's it.
Commissioner Alpa.
Pass.
Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Forney. Next Wednesday, I have the pleasure of doing a ribbon cutting for the first pickleball bank in the system. It is very exciting. Quite a few of you have already RSVP'd so that we know where to put you in the... Sorry, I got a comedian over here to my right. So I appreciate those of you that have taken the time to tell me already whether or not you can make it. For those of you that have not yet RSVP'd, please do so before you leave tonight. Staff is stressing out a little bit about putting together the teams and the competition with the city council, the mayor, the superintendent, and I. So if you could do that before you leave tonight, thank you. I would appreciate it. As would the staff that are helping coordinate this. I'm very excited very excited to cut a ribbon and also show off my mad pickleball skills next Wednesday at 6 p.m. at the Nokomis Community Center. And for all of you watching in the audience, you're welcome to come and cheer us on and watch us, flaunt our mad pickleball skills. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. I apologize. My schedule has been so crazy. Consider this my RSVP. I realized I'm one of the ones who probably hasn't gotten back. But I just bought a new racket, and it comes with a cooling towel. So, very intense. I will just say this, the 4th of July, I appreciate everything staff has done. I appreciate everybody in here, anybody listening who's left. I was chatting with my sister yesterday, who she and I were regaling each other with tales of our youth and watching the fireworks at Powderhorn Park and the excitement of our 4th of July traditions as children, and then getting to watch them over the river. And we are not only the city of lakes, we're also a river city. And I'm brouhaha, like I cannot wait for the day that we get fireworks back in our city, because they are so iconic and they're so incredible. And I think it's one of the beauties of this incredible city that we all live in, is when you get to gather with your community and celebrate. And I completely respect and recognize that we can't do that right now. And I just commend our staff, and I'm glad that Commissioner Menz and anybody else that went had a good time at the laser light show. I'm sure my son would have said the exact same thing that Clark did. That's all I have to say, and thank you so much to everyone up here and showing up the day after the 4th of July.
Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you, President Forney. I guess I just also want to sort of say some of the same things about the 4th of July, and I did hear from some people that experienced really bad interactions with, people with fireworks, basically, and in my district. And I would also say this was pretty widespread all over the city, and I think in a way, at least that's something that is positive, because everybody can kind of see what the problem is. And I think we have to fix it for the whole city and not just part of the city. So, and I do appreciate what, I can't even imagine what it's like to have one police officer with 100 people. I don't think that's good. And I would say, kids have always been testing limits and so on, but when I was a kid, you couldn't even get sprinklers in this town. So sparklers, that's what they're called. See, I don't even know what they're called. So I think things have really changed. And I would also ask, maybe there's a way when we're going into the fall with our legislative agenda. We did not pass. There was that item to have on our agenda about fireworks, and maybe we need to at least talk about that again and see where that belongs as another tool in the toolkit. So that's it. Thanks.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah. Well, I guess 4th of July. It is just funny. I think it's a time-honored tradition that people do dumb stuff with fireworks, and I wish there was a way that we could stop it. Obviously, they're not legal here, but they're legal in other states. But I think mitigating things with good, positive events is good. So kind of transitioning. So yeah, I too went to the laser light show. I would say personally, I would describe it as underwhelming, although it was very fun to see so many people there. And there was an impromptu dance party and stuff, but the folks got most excited and were most happy about the Twins fireworks that started happening halfway through. That was the most audible excitement. And I think, it is important to be able to provide some excitement and that outlet. So I think I am now converted back to pro fireworks, but having experience. But it was a very positive night overall, and biking through the city, it really felt like folks were kind of coming out of a few-year hibernation, and so yeah, just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you all. Well, I want to congratulate you. Other than Commissioner Musich. A year and a half, you guys. You've served a year and a half, which both of us have indicated that's when we started getting it. I'm just really impressed with this group, and I real proud of you all. I'm even more proud of the fact that we've done this in less than 3 hours. So on that, I announce the meeting is adjourned.